take it there. And again, Zoom is not my friend today. All right. Trying to let someone in that's in the waiting room, so give me a second. All right, those that just joined, if you have not signed in, please make sure you sign in with your name and your section number, please. Okay, somewhere in there, my Adobe cut out on me. Let's go back and find it. Really don't need it to be this type of Saturday. I got a lot to do today. There we go. All right, trying it again. Second time's the charm. All right, here we go. As I stated, many of you've probably already seen this document. If you have not, you may want to download it and familiarize yourself with it. But it is what MDE has deemed our professional growth system. It goes through what is the expectation as an observation and feedback guide. I'm just going to point out a couple of things in this document. You guys can go back and read it at your leisure. But just so that you understand that some of the things that happen that you have to do and perform as a leader, they are outlined by the state of Mississippi. And when you get ready to do your teacher evaluation, you will have this document at your disposal to kind of read through it and when you're writing up your narrative for our class. The biggest thing that I want to point out is here on this page, because there is an actual observation and feedback cycle that we should go through. And it starts with the classroom observation, and it has to be something that once you go through it, then you are also allowing time that you can give clear, specific, actionable, and timely feedback. And that is not a observe, let me speak to you real quick after the observation or in the hallway when I pass you going to lunch. This is a timed thing that you've scheduled. And this is supposed to help guide changes in teacher practices. And also, you should allow time to follow up and provide additional feedback. And what I consider a follow up is I'm going to go back in and check for the things that I've already talked to you about. So the observation and feedback process, this is the other part that I wanted to outline, is that you have to collect, and that's the collection is your observation. And just like any other data piece, we organize the data, we use our rubrics and our standards, and we make sure that we're sorting and we're analyzing and making sure we understand what we observed. You interpret the data. I tell every class this about the interpretation. Sometimes we have to step outside of what we deem as good teaching, good classroom management, and we have to go into what is good for that particular person. And some people are a little lackadaisical when it comes to classroom management, but their kids are learning, they're thriving. So when you're interpreting data, sometimes you have to interpret it from that particular teacher. And that's why building relationships and getting to know your people is so valuable. And therefore you can give a performance level based off of that teacher's performance and not your predetermined norms. provide feedback. You use evidence to, ground discussion with the teacher on improving practices. It's not an I feel moment. Um, it's as I was in your classroom and I observed you teaching, I realized out of the group of 5 kids that you had working, only one was doing the work. Only two were actually engaging. That is, feedback that is evidence-based. And that does require you to focus in and pay attention to what is being said and what is being done. Now, in Mississippi, there is it's a directive on how many observations that are required. There are 3 minimum per school year. 3. 2 of those have to be informal, unannounced. And one of them needs to be a formal announced. I always call the formal announced the dog and pony show. If I tell you I'm coming and you have a heads up that I'm coming a week or so to prepare, and if your teaching is pitiful that day, then I just can only imagine what it has looked like all the days prior to me getting there. Because anytime you give a person time to prepare and put a dog and pony show on, it should be their very best. 2 informal, unannounced walk-ins, and you may not stay for a full hour to watch a full lesson, but you're in there observing what's going on and actually getting an idea of what type of teacher you have in your building. And I will say this much about the unannounced. I do so many informals, and my informals are announced. I send a schedule out weekly of where I'm going to be. And so I feel like by the time we get to our formals, teachers aren't even bugged by the fact that I'm in there. They're like, she's in here again. Keep going, keep doing. So you want that to be the cycle of observations within your school. You want your teachers to be at ease when you come in and work with a kid, because that in terms becomes your environment. Well, you've done the videos on culture and climate. You want that to be the culture in your school, that the principals are always around. They're always in the classrooms. So with that being said, are there any questions so far about that? Okay, guys, I'm gonna pause for just a minute. I let my dog out and she is having a nervous breakdown because she doesn't want to be out there anymore. Give me just a moment. I'm gonna grab her and let her in. Okay. So sorry. That's what I say. Life happens all day long. I'm so sorry. Okay, so I'm now going to take us into another document that MDE uses for observations and feedbacks. One of them is going to be an evidence sorting form, and the other form is a scripting form. I'm going to talk about the scripting form first. That is the document used for note taking. And that was, I will say, my biggest hurdle when I started doing observations. Is like, I can't see it all. I can't get all this stuff written down. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. What am I supposed to write? And it feels like that when you're sitting in a classroom and you're trying to see what the teacher's doing, what the students are doing. And I have learned that you get down the highlights. It's like a highlight reel, and you remember some of the things, but you try to get down the most important. So let me share so you guys can see this scripting form. So part of your teacher evaluation assignment, you all will be asked to watch a teacher video, which is going to be a YouTube video, and we're going to practice that in just a minute. You're going to watch the YouTube video of a teacher teaching, and you can pick whatever discipline, grade, band that you're most comfortable with, but it's not going to be every subject area with every grade. So you just pick one that you're most comfortable with. And you'll fill in, teacher, you could just put, fourth grade or whatever that video that you've selected. I don't spend a lot of time focused in on this part, so please don't start like, oh my gosh, what do I put here? What do I put here? That's not the most important part. The most important part that I'm going to look at is this part here. And I'm gonna also say I'm not gonna be super critical about the time because again, it's a YouTube video. I don't want you to have to stop every few seconds to put down a time. Oh, I wrote this at this time. The most important thing is what is the teacher doing? What is the students learning? Teaching and learning. And it's not a complete recap of all the things the teacher and the student is doing. Again, it's the highlights. Okay, so you will do that, and this is also in your Canvas module. This form is very funny. If you can download it and then reopen it in a PDF, it'll probably work better. Mine still is really like it messes up. It'll type there, and then some days say it's there too. It pops up in the same spot. If you can't get it to act right, let me say this, please write this down because I know somebody's going to email me this question later. I don't care if you print it off and you handwrite it. As long as your handwriting is legible enough for me to be able to read it, you can handwrite on these documents and you can scan them and email and upload them to Canvas that way. And if you do not have the lovely app Scan Genius, please download it so that you don't have to be at your school to run it through a big machine. Scan Genius will allow you to take photos of every page and then save them and then and upload them in the same thing. But if you cannot get your form downloaded and sorted where that it'll let you type, you can write on it. Any questions about that? So as you're doing these observations, let's talk about things we can see in a video and things we really can't see in a video. Domain 4, you can't see that watching a teacher in a video because you don't know if that teacher went to professional learning, if they have PLCs, it does not talk about that. You don't know if she's maintaining effective communication with families and guardians. These are things you cannot see. But can you see if the students are understanding the content? Yes. Why, yes, you can. Can you see the culture and learning environment? Why, yes, you can. What about lesson design? Can I see whether or not standards, they represent a coherent sequence of learning? Yes. Why, yes, you can. Have high levels of learning for all? Yes. I think those things you can kind of glean from a video. Um, student learning, you understand what that is in terms of, is there a process of the teacher and the student working together in the learning? Multiple ways for students to make meaning of content. Those types of things you can kind of glean from watching a video. So will you pick up all of those things every time? No, you will not. And even in the video that you watch, you may not see all of that every time. The third document that I want to share with you guys is going to be the evidence sorting form. And that form is just a little bit different in that once you write down the things that you've witnessed on the video, then you have to say, well, I gave this person a 4. Like, this is such a distinguished teacher, but now I got to tell why I gave this person a 4. So that's when your evidence sorting form comes in handy. And okay, that is it. The evidence sorting form is gonna help you tell why you feel like this person is a 4, a 3, a 2, or a 1. Minimum, basic, proficient, advanced. That's how I think about it. If the teacher, let's think about, and I like to use domain 2 because that's the domain when you're watching these videos that you will have more evidence. Does the teacher communicate the lesson goals and the content in a way that is accessible for every student? Those are some things you can see. Now, in 6 of those areas under domain 4, and you have a teacher who can, that you're watching in the video that's done all those things, then yes, there are 4. You'll circle the 4, and then down here in evidence, you'll talk about why did you give them a 4. And I can only think of the one, the ELA video where the teacher was very guided the lesson, done a whole bunch for the class. I saw that teacher as a 4. But then I got a lot of sheets back when I was grading this, and a lot of you guys didn't think she was a 4. And I was like, oh, let me go back and watch it again. And that's the thing about these type of evaluations. One person can watch something and see a lot, and another can watch it and see little to nothing. I'm so sorry. She's excited. And that's just kind of how an evaluation goes. And that's why evidence is so vital when you're sitting down with a teacher. Think about yourselves. If you sit down and your principal's like, well, I really felt like you were a 3 in this area. And you're like, whoa, this was my best lesson. I was a strong 4. The evidence supports where you are placing that person on the scale. Is any questions about this document? Okay.
Dr. Cockrell, I have a question.
Mhm.
So, are you saying each one of those bulleted items has to be seen during the observation time in order for the teacher to get that particular score?
No, ma'am, because some things you can't always see. You go in, and I just take, for example, and my 3rd grade teachers are doing this program, Amplify. Some of you may have heard of Amplify. If I go in on a teaching day, she does all the work. That's the way the program is set up. It's scripted in a way that the teacher models. Then you go back on day 2, then the kids are working with the teacher. Then you go back on day 3 of the lesson and you see more of the teacher working. Does that make sense? So some days,
Yes.
if it's direct instruction, you guys know that direct instruction, it's all you. Because you're
Mhm.
teaching a new content, they got to figure out all the steps and all the things. So not necessarily will you see all those areas, but here's the thing about when you're the principal or you're going in to do the observations, after you've been in so many times, you can speak to everything in that box of 4 after a few observations because you have seen it because of your multiple times being in the room.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you for asking. This is a very quiet group this morning. We all must have gone to football last night. I
Okay,
see some
okay,
head nod.
okay. At your school, okay, you said you have a what you say you have a curriculum that your 3rd graders do, so they
Yes,
don't do the I do, we do stuff every day. So you said you breaking it down day by day of what they do.
the program is scripted in such a way that no, every day is not going to be the same. Mm-mm.
Okay, then so that way I see what you're saying. It will be different at different schools depending on
Where
what
you are.
what program you're working on, because they strictly want to see that every single day. And then you're right, some days you're not gonna do all of them because some days you have to focus on one thing that the students need to, need to get. But some schools do want to see that we do, I do every day. So I do like that way.
Oh yeah. And now that's, when you go in some schools, and I've been in a K-5 before, my school now is 3-5. K-5, when you go in kindergarten, 1st grade, they want to see center activities every day. It's just different. I worked in a school where we did Madeline Hunter. I had to have, everything scripted. I mean, like it was so many different steps in a day, but everything is a little different. You go in a math classroom, you're not going to see a whole bunch of everybody moving around.
Okay.
It's different.
Okay, so where do you find those different steps at? I mean, what's good for 4th and 5th grade? I mean, I ever since I've been teaching, I only heard one way.
Well, I can't tell you where you best practices, you're gonna find them everywhere. And there is not one solid way of how we teach kids. It's not. And like I said, I've been in 3 different districts and I've learned so many different methods in my 20 years of doing this.
Yeah.
You just find what works best, what kids ascribe to and learn from, and that's just what you use. And that would be what I would say to any and everybody. Like you have to be in classrooms watching teachers and watching kids. All right, I'm gonna ask, we're gonna do a little activity. If you would, I need everybody to just kind of grab a sheet of paper. Just a sheet of paper, fold it in half. Fold it in half. What is this called? The hamburger fold? No, hot dog fold is long. Hot dog fold. I learned that too back in the day. See, some of the stuff just stay with us. All right, so on the, what is this? Well, I'm looking at it, it's my left side. Right, teacher, and on the right side, student. And we're gonna do a quick little observation. Y'all can see that. We're gonna do a little bit of this, what we just talked about. I'm gonna show you guys 2 different videos. So we're gonna do it twice, okay? The first video is of a kindergarten teacher, and then the second video we're going to watch is of a 4th grade teacher. So trying to give a little bit of a variation. High school folks, I'm sorry. I didn't pull an Algebra 2 video. It may be because I don't understand it as much as y'all do, but it's okay. We're going to do these 2 videos. What I want you to do not spend time on the time part. That's why I didn't put time on my sheet. It's just teacher and just student. And I will tell y'all one of my little quick things that I always do. And it's just because I like to write fast. I use TT, the teacher, and TS, the student, because I'm not going to keep writing the student did, the student is. It just, shorthand is my thing. So we're going to watch these 2 videos. And you're just going to script a little bit. You will notice where I'm going to fast forward a little bit, and we won't watch the whole thing because of time. But we will watch a little bit of it just so you can get a little bit of comfort in doing this if you've never done it before. And I'm sure I have some people on here that are probably already doing these things, and we would love to hear from you and how you think through your observation and feedbacks. So let me make sure my video will play because, like I said before, YouTube is sometimes my friend, sometimes not. All right, it's gonna work. Fingers crossed. Yes. So we must have made up. All righty, there. Let's see. Make sure I got volume. Got volume. There we go.
Doing some thinking for a moment because I was thinking about the books. 2 of the stories we've read. Dominic, off the table. Oh. I was thinking about spring. No. And then I was thinking about the story Down the Hill. And I was thinking, Davion, I was thinking about some of the things that are the same about the stories and some of the things that are different. CJ, in your spot, sitting up. I was thinking about some of the things that are the same and some of the things that are different. I'm going to need your help. We're going to put those things up here on what we call a Venn diagram. Can you say that? Venn diagram. Oh, one more time. Say it. Venn diagram. In order to do this, I'm going to need your help. So first, I need you. Push your body in, please. Not too close. Remember, don't touch the person in front of you. Let's go. Look, there's one right here. Scoot up. CJ, you need to be out from under the table. Okay, eyes right here. Thank you, Kiesia. Eyes are up here. She's ready to learn. James is ready. Now I'm going to need a scout. A scout is going to be someone who watches, someone who's being responsible, sitting up. Dominic, would you come on up and be our scout first? Nope, Dominic. Sit down, Davion. Sit down, sir. Responsibility is doing what you're supposed to be doing. So you're sitting up straight and tall, you're listening. When you turn it, when it's time to turn and talk to your friends, you turn and talk. Okay, here we go. Let's see here. I'm thinking, we know what happened in spring. Let's think back to what happened in the story Down the Hill. Let me help you. No, sit down. Sit down. It's falling down. Davion, sit down. Sit down. Thank you, sir. Look here. What happened at the beginning of the story Down the Hill? Was it snowing in spring? No. Okay, so let's see. Down the hill. In the story Down the Hill, it was snowing. I just felt snowing. But I'm thinking, in the story spring, was it snowy?
No, because the snow melted.
The snow had melted. I'm gonna put that because that's different. The snow melted. That's not the same, is it? Because it was sunny over here, huh?
And then it's cold, I think.
Oh, in both?
Yes.
Did Toad say blonde here?
Yes.
Listen. Frog said, winter is beautiful, come out and have fun. Blah, said Toad.
Yes. Yeah, my name is Mama.
So Toad said, blah.
Yes.
Right? We'll put that in a bubble because Toad said. Hi there, can I get a counselor to 108?
You come in, Kelso?
Let me see. Let's look at what else is different. When Frog got to Toad's house,
He said,
he said, "Frog." Oh,
But that's what
in this story, Frog dressed Toad in.
Okay, and again, I know that was quick and I skipped ahead a little bit because of, like I said, time. Tell me some thoughts. What did we see the teacher doing? And let me say this before we start. Let's not talk from a place of what she should have done first. Just basically say the teacher did, the student did, okay? All right, who wants to share? What did the teacher do?
So the teacher set clear expectations for the scout position and redirected behavior as needed.
Good job.
I
So-
put the teacher is using guided questions to get the kids engaged.
Mm-hmm.
She used positive reinforcement. So she said, that certain students were doing certain things that were correct. So she used that positive reinforcement.
Okay, so let's switch gears to the student. What did the students do?
The
Recalled-
students were,
oh, go ahead.
Students were engaged. They provided feedback when she asked questions.
Okay,
I was going to say that the students recalled story details from prior readings.
mm-hmm. So that wasn't difficult. Now, the other part of this, when we start talking about evidence and collecting our evidence, would you say in student learning that this teacher was a 4? Okay, no one's giving her 4. Okay, a 3. No one's giving her 3 either.
I'm
Okay.
trying to.
Yes,
pull
I
up
gave
and
her a
remember
3.
all the
I gave her a
digits
3.
that were- Yeah, I
a
would
3.
probably say a 3.
Okay, I hear some 3s, and it is evident by.
I think it's a 3 because the students were able to give the feedback. They were correctly comparing and contrasting the 2 books. So they obviously did learn from the stories.
Okay. So now let's switch gears to why she's not a 4.
I just,
Oh, go
I
ahead.
kind of felt like she was a little all over the place, like she was looking for something, like she might didn't have everything she needed right there.
Okay. I like that response. So here's the thing about this for me. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead and share.
Oh, yes, I just think maybe between 3 and 3.5. I think I know babies move all over the place and they can't sit, but I think she spent too much time trying to get one baby's attention and then going back to the class and then getting to the kid and getting back to the class. So she's trying really hard, but that baby maybe needs a special place right next to her or something.
You heard her call for the counselor, and I'm gonna bet money it was for him. Yes. But and it is, and if you just, for me, I'm looking at the video, it's winter time. We've gone through the beginning of school. By now, procedures and expectations should be set. Everyone in that class by December, January should know what our expectations are when we go to the carpet, even in kindergarten, because that's all we've practiced from the start of school until December, January. Everybody should know to come to the carpet, sit down. We're getting ready to read. Raise your hand. I will call on you. I love her use of a scout, but I also, like many of you saw with her management, she was not effective. And in order to be effective with instruction, you have to be effective in management, because then you do appear to be, as Ms. Matthews said, all over the place. Even if she was prepped and planned, she still seemed like she was all over the place. And that's going to be your burden when you go in to do an observation and you're watching a teacher and you're gathering evidence, and then you're going back and you're having to sit down and chat with them. And if you find that a teacher is all over the place, does not have procedures in place, what does that conversation looks like? What would that conversation be? And you have to be prepped in having that conversation, or as the new phrase, the uncomfortable discussion of this is why. And think about it, you all are in a master specialist course, so you want to be your best selves. But when you have some teachers coming in, they're right out of college, and they're sitting in your buildings. And guys, I will tell you, it's not a fireman, I'm gonna hire somebody else situation anymore, because there are no people to hire. Okay, they're not coming out of the programs anymore. So you got to figure out, how do you grow your people? Do you give them a mentor? Do you mentor them? Do you send them to watch other teachers? What's the process going to be? All of that goes into when we start talking about the professional growth rubric. It's not about I gotcha. I'm coming in because I've heard you're not teaching and I'm gonna figure this out. That system of the way we do things is really and truly archaic, and it does not, you can't do it anymore. And don't get me wrong, I know there are still practicing administrators that still prescribe to that measure. But when I tell you, we interviewed roughly 50 people last year for positions, and I had to have a second round because none of those people were great candidates. So you got to think about how to grow your staff. And if you do hire people, how do you grow those people that don't fit your school? And when I say your school, I'm speaking in terms of teaching and learning, not culture and climate. The teaching and learning part, when we start talking about domains 1 and 2. All right, we're going to watch another teacher, and you're going to take some notes in the same way, so you'll still need your sheet.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes, ma'am.
When we put something on the teacher side, do we need something on the student side that correlates to that? Or is it kind of independent of each other?
They do tend to correlate. Most times you will notice that they correlate with one another. But if you're in a situation, again, I go back to if it's a teacher-led classroom discussion, you may not see a lot of student, you'll see a lot of teacher. And
I
then
did have a lot more teacher on this one than I did student. Okay.
Because she was doing most of the work. But you will see in this next video, it's going to look a little bit different. Okay. And this again is a 4th grade classroom. Okay, see what I mean? Zoom, we're not getting it this time. Let's try again, make sure I have it. Okay, yeah, there's the screen. There we go. All righty, let's see here.
What are we here to learn? We are. I can identify the main idea and supporting details from what I read and create a summary using the supporting details. Okay, give yourself a pat on the back if you're ready. Okay, let's turn those papers over that you have on your desk. This is your opportunity to do a closed reading activity where you read that article. You can use your pencil to highlight any information that you think will help you in finding the main idea. We're going to be using the reading cards, the blue reading cards. So when you're done, simply turn it over so we'll know when we can move on. You may begin. Okay, stop. Thank you for all reading that passage on your own and marking key information that you found in the text. I will now read it to you. Feel free to also mark something if you don't feel you got it on your read. Feel free to mark it at this time. Water striders. Imagine yourself zooming across the top of a pond or lake without sinking in. While this might be hard for you to do, it is easy for a water strider. A water strider is a like all insects, the water strider has 6 legs. The front pair of legs is short, while the middle and back legs are very long. Water striders also have very good vision and can move for food for other insects. Okay, now it's time for us to work on some text-dependent questions. We are going to play bingo while we answer the questions today. You have some spiders that you're going to use as your markers. Here's how the game will be played. Your entire group is one team. I will tell you what row or column we're working on at that time. Whenever I show you what row or column we're working on, your team is going to try to find the answers to those questions. They must be highlighted in the text, and you must be able to tell me where you found it with the paragraph and the sentence number. Here we go. The first thing we're going to work on is across the top. What insect does a water strider resemble? How would you describe the size of a water strider? What fact can you select to show the speed of a water strider? Go.
A water strider.
Large mosquito. It looks like a large mosquito. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Okay, so put a spider right there.
What's your answer going to be?
I would ask, a large mosquito.
Okay.
The size of a water.
You're going to find it in the text. You have to be able to highlight it to use it for an answer. What fact can you select to show the speed of a water strider?
Water strider.
Abby has an answer. Share it, Abby. What did you see?
I saw sentence 5. I think it's in water spiders also have
Go on and finish.
good vision and can move quickly.
Awesome job. Awesome. Okay, I heard my first group. Water striders. I heard it. Okay, let's see if they've got it. Now they're going to help you out because remember when we respond, the first thing we do is tell the paragraph, then the sentence number, then we give our fact, but then we answer our question. And I'm going to type the answer up here. That way you'll make sure you've highlighted the correct section. Here we go. Which insect does a water strider resemble? Hudson, can you tell me where you found that answer?
Paragraph 2, sentence 1. A water strider is a water bug that looks like a large mosquito.
Okay, so he said paragraph 2, sentence 1. And what is your answer then?
A large mosquito.
A large mosquito. He is correct. Looking good. Next one. How would you describe the size?
All right, completely different classroom, age group setting. The teacher, let's start with the teacher.
She
I
gives
feel
me
like
the
she
instruction.
wasn't walking around enough. Some of the students wasn't marking on the paper at first when she said
Okay,
for them to read and
DeAndrea.
do. I seen some confusion on the faces of some of the students, and she just wasn't walking around to make sure that they
Denandra,
understood what the
Miss
assignment
Hall.
was.
Miss Hall,
Ma'am.
are you speaking? Okay, I'm gonna pause you for just a minute because you started with the phrase, I feel, okay? Let's remember, we're gonna say the teacher and tell exactly what the teacher did. That's what your sheet, when you put these in, you're saying the teacher and you're saying exactly what the teacher actually did during the lesson. That's the hardest thing, guys, because we go in and we know what good instruction looks like and we jump in. But let's focus first. We're doing our scripting. Scripting is just what we saw. So start again, Denandra. I'm pronouncing it wrong.
I'll let somebody go. Somebody else can go. That's okay.
Well, I'll go. I thought that the teacher discussed the objectives for the day, so the kids were aware of what the expectation was. So that was something really positive.
Okay.
I saw she gave clear instructions to the students, and always when she was talking to the students, try to give positive feedback. And she had, what I saw is that she had like instruction and then individual work and then group work.
Okay. Anyone else?
I saw that she gave, I saw that the teacher gave the guidelines for the activity several times. So in case if students were confused, she repeated the guidelines for the activity several times.
Okay. The students, what did we see from the students?
Students completely understood the directions to me, and they knew exactly what to do and what materials to use.
Okay.
Procedures, yeah.
I saw the students knew what to do way before she started. Like they knew what they were supposed to do because they knew go to work and they knew when to stop. They knew like she didn't have to redirect any of the students. So I think that was a good thing.
Okay.
They they collaborated together very well. They you could tell that they were accustomed to group work.
Okay.
And the
I think that the students followed along.
Followed along. Okay. So when we start looking at our evidence sorting form, when we talk about the first domain of lesson design, do we feel like the lesson design would have given her a 4?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Student understanding.
I think so.
Yes.
What about the culture of the learning environment?
I think it's a good one because the students felt comfortable sharing their opinion.
In comparison to the first video, do you feel like in terms, because think about it, kindergarten, you are herding cats. You get one in the basket, another one jumps out. And then you have 4th graders, they've been trained to sit at desk and share across and do all the things. In terms of the culture and the learning environment, were both learning environments a good environment, or do we feel like one was better than the other?
I think good one.
I definitely think one was better than the other one, even though you expect kindergartners to be a little more rambunctious. However, you could tell again that one had not set the expectations versus the other one had.
And speaking
like
to
how
the
the
culture,
fourth-
I agree.
I like how the 4th grade, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The 4th grade teacher gave one little girl the opportunity to answer a question in her group when it was obvious that someone else was going to talk instead of her. I think that's a very good way to facilitate group work because you're going to have one kid that's soft-spoken that knows the answer, and the teacher prompted her to give that to the group. I was impressed with that culture aspect.
Yeah. And it also boosts the confidence of the soft-spoken student to feel comfortable to start answering questions and start participating. Because once the students feel comfortable, that soft-spoken student really comes out because of their confidence.
Absolutely.
All right.
I agree.
Okay. So, Ms. Hobbs, I really want to hear your perspective because you did have a different viewpoint in terms of some of the things that you saw when you were watching it.
The teacher wasn't walking around enough for me. I seen some expressions on the students' face that looked like they was confused. And even when they went over paragraph 2, sentence 1, with the answer about large mosquito. One of the students was not highlighting that paragraph too. He was way at the last paragraph. I noticed that on the video.
Okay. And see, for evidence, that's what I say all the time. When some of us see things from a 4, and then some of us can look at it from a 2 or a 1. And then too, and what I did appreciate, you were watching the students and what the students were doing. And some of us was watching the teacher, and everything she did looked really good. But that's that piece of teaching and learning and trying to make them kind of match in there somewhere.
So would we note that on the teacher side, like the teacher spent most of her time
So Dr.
at one location, or?
And that's a discussion to have. And I'll tell you, we have, and most of you guys probably, those smart boards, right? Teachers are now married to the smart board. We're up at that board and we're punching and we're writing problems and we're doing all that. How much are we walking? So I did this survey when I would go in and do observations where I would literally draw lines for where the teacher went. And in some classrooms, they moved little to none. They were married to the board. So now we've gone to purchasing iPads. So you could be at the back of the room with that same sheet and using your pen, and the kid is looking at the board, but you're looking at what they're doing. So it's just observation. That was data I was collecting because I felt like the teachers didn't move enough. And they weren't in the back of the room like Miss Hobbs. I see kids, you're supposed to be copying down the math problem on your paper so you have something to study tonight. Your paper's empty. You just got 16. How'd you get to 16, fella? Tell me some things, you know? And so that was an observation. That was the data I was collecting. And my leadership team knew I was coming in to collect that data because I told them. It wasn't an I gotcha. You know, so if I tell you to go back and tell your team, Dr. Cockrell is coming in now to collect data on if the Promethean board is not allowing us to walk around the room. That was what I was looking for. And when my assistant principal and I walked into classrooms, we were not looking for what kids were on task and all of that. We were watching the teachers. The teachers knew that. And we did that for like 2 cycles. And once we drew all our lines, we saw some teachers, they were all over the room. But you want to know which teachers were all over the room, and it's going to shock you? The science teachers. And it was so funny to me. The ELA teachers were at the board because they were breaking down passages and you know, doing all of that. The math teachers were doing the problems, but they were married to the board. So that is a good observation, and you have to pay attention to those things. Vincent, your hand is raised. I like that feature too.
Yes, ma'am. So initially I was kind of like Ms. Hobbs, where I was thinking, hey, you know, she's not walking around enough. But then I did consider the fact that during the first part, that was a closed read, which during that time, the teacher really should not interject, right? For me in math, there are times where we're in that initial stage of discovery and I do not need an interject. And I know me, right? If I see you doing something wrong, I'm going to want to correct that right then. So I'll stay back because I know I'll kind of observe from afar, because I know if I get close to you, I'm going to say, hey, no, you're doing this wrong. And I don't need to at that time because that's that productive struggle, right? So sometimes I think that there are times that we see things and we do need to ask for clarity later on to say, hey, why did you stay back, or why was this? Because again, you know, there may be a specific purpose that is validated that we don't necessarily observe, but that we get through conversation.
Great segue into the feedback portion. An observation is nothing without a feedback. If you don't sit down with a teacher and talk through what you've observed, you will never get a full understanding of that observation. And just like what you're saying, and I'm going to go right there with what Vincent said, you have to observe it and then you have to ask questions after. I'm one of those that I ask clarifying questions. I was a literacy specialist, so I'm never going to come at you and say, hey, you know, I was in your room and I didn't like how you did such and such. I'm going to ask clarifying questions all while you're with me. Hey, tell me about group number 2 over in the corner. What was the expectation for them? 80% of my teachers will be like, oh yeah, I saw them, they weren't doing anything, you know, and they go to their spiel about why. if you don't have, when you do your scripting form and you're writing out all the things that you saw them do, but then you don't like collect the evidence and have a conversation about the evidence you collected, I just don't think people get a full viewpoint. An administrator doesn't get a full viewpoint. And some of you guys that have been in education probably longer than me, remember the times where you got a formal evaluation and it was stuck in your box and it was never discussed.
Yes, that's what I have a problem. That's exactly what I have a problem with. I do like when you say you give them feedback, because that's the way they're gonna grow. If you don't never give feedback, you don't know what you're doing wrong. You can continue doing what you're doing because you don't know. And that's what I do. I know I don't probably not get no perfect score, but if you're gonna score me something low, you need to tell me what I did, what I didn't do, what you didn't see, and you know that. And then at my point in time right now, I have to ask. I have to do email. I have to ask for feedback. And I don't like that. I don't like where you see me something through email and you want me to sign. I'm not gonna sign anything until you give me feedback and let me know what I need. I need feedback. So that feedback is, I say it's very important. So I feel like if I come a leader, they're gonna be a big part of me, because for me, experience as a teacher, I'm not getting that much feedback. I know that's important, because that's the only way that a teacher or anybody gonna grow, to get
And that's
feedback so you can
that
know
is
what.
a true statement. And as a teacher, I hated that. I truly did. I hated to get something in my box. And I'm like you, I'm gonna be sitting outside your office because we're gonna chat. I'm okay with us having a conversation about what you wrote on my
That
paper.
struggle. I had that struggle with my first year in high school, because I thought in elementary there's no break. Since the moment you get into that classroom, it's go, go, go. So then I moved to the high school, and there's more downtime in the high school than there is. So of course I believe my lesson plans were top of the product. I had my best, my time, everything. So when they gave me, I remember this, he gave me a 3.75. And then I walked to his office and I said, I want to know why I didn't get a 4, because I believe I deserve a 4. And he just sat there and he looked at me and he was just like, what do you mean you have 3.75? And I was like, yeah, but I worked for a 4. So why am I not getting one? Oh my God. He was sitting there. He was like, well, if I give you a 4, that means you're perfect. Andy, are you perfect? I was like, I'm not, but I know my lesson is perfect because I work on it. That was a struggle. He flat out told me I'm never getting a 4. So
And I know lots of administrators who prescribe to that practice. We are in the throes of formal evaluations right now, and I can only tell you maybe we've done 10 or 15 so far. And there are not many of my teachers that are not all 4s. All 4s. You are distinguished. I wouldn't hire you and have you in my building if you were not. I mean, I'm just being honest. I feel like if a person did a great job, does a great job on a day-to-day basis, we all have bad days. Then why would I tell a person, oh, that's perfect. You're never gonna be perfect. Well, don't put it on the form. Take the 4 off. If I can't ever get there, don't show it to me. So I don't prescribe to that practice, but I do know lots of administrators do. So don't let that hold you back. You're a 4. Okay, so I'm going to keep us moving because of time. It's the one thing in life we can't get back, and I try to respect other people's time, trying to make sure my PowerPoint is actually working. Okay, so far in our journey of learning, we have gone through domain 1, 2, 3, and 4. Domain 1 focused on data. I will say one thing about the data-driven focus on school improvement. If you're in a school that doesn't focus on data, please move. That's all I'm gonna say about that. If you're not looking at kids' data, you're teaching in the dark, because you need to know where kids are moving or if they're not moving. So that's one of those areas in life that, I tell my teachers, kids are not numbers, they're kids. But the number helps us understand if we're growing kids. And as an educator, Our ultimate goal is to grow kids. It is not for them to be worse than where they came. If I go to the gym every day, Monday through Friday, Friday through Sunday, or whatever, at the end of the month, I want to see a small gain, even if it's not a huge one, because I know I had cheesecake Monday through Friday too, then I'm going to see some marginal gains. Do you see what I'm saying? So our goal is to grow kids. So if we're not watching the data, we don't know what direction we're going in. That's just part of it. So domain 2 is a guaranteed viable curriculum. If we don't have interconnectedness of our curriculum, we're not gonna have great instruction. In order to have great instruction, we have to be following what the state has deemed as our necessary teaching. And necessary teaching is the Mississippi College and Career Readiness Standards. And so we have to have that as our guide. A textbook is not your curriculum. The standards are. And I have to always revisit that all the time. We bought Amplify, but Amplify can't teach kids. Teachers teach kids and teachers teach the standards. It's a process. Domain 3, we have continuous development of teachers and staff. And this is one of the new domains, and it's focused more or less on operational and human capital management. As a leader, your primary focus is going to be on improving teacher practices. You're not in the classroom teaching anymore when you come out into an administrator role. So you are the teacher of the teacher, right? So you can't get even stagnant. You're supposed to be reading and learning and trying to make sure you know what best practices are. And here's the thing, especially those of you guys that are high school folks, you're not going to be an expert in every area of instruction. You're not going to know Spanish or French if that's not your area of focus. But you have to be capable of noticing what is good instruction. You have to notice if kids in a classroom are on Lost Island, or if kids in the classroom are moving. And again, that goes back to domain 1, watching that data. Having those data talks so you understand that your teachers understand what's going on. As in domain 4, there should be an emphasis on collaborative teamwork for teachers to plan effective instruction. And one of the words I'm sure my teachers are sick of hearing me say, collective teacher efficacy. Y'all are a collection. When you get that 3rd grade data back, it's gonna have all 3rd graders listed in one lump sum, and they're gonna give you a score. They do break it down and give you your class and that class, but at the end of the day, when you get that accountability model in July, it's gonna say 3rd grade. So we're a collective. We live and die as a team. If your teammate is in the 60% and you're in the 80%, there's a problem somewhere. What's the problem? Right? And as the lead of that classroom, you got to identify what the problem is, because you're the lead of every classroom as the administrator. So you got to figure out what is the problem. How are you going to have that uncomfortable conversation with that particular teacher so that you can understand what's going on? Going back to asking clarifying questions. And guys, the community of care and collaboration is why teachers leave this profession. If I don't feel like you care about me, I'm not going to work for you. Kids have been kids since the beginning of teaching and learning. Parents have been parents since the beginning of teaching and learning. They have more access to us now than they did 20 plus years ago, but they're still the same people, right? The difference maker is who you are when you're leading a building. So beginning now, I need y'all to start thinking about, how am I as an administrator going to promote a more inclusive way to think about a community of care? Everybody in your building needs something else. They don't need something different from the person next door to them. And then when we leave domain 4, we're going into domain 5, which is our core values. Y'all, this is one, and I'll say this 100 times over. Get a notebook and write down what you believe in education. Nothing special, nothing typed out, but just write down, what are your beliefs as an educator? And I promise you, when you walk into your role as an assistant principal, curriculum lead, principal, anything that's going to require you to lead other people, you need to know what your core values are. And those of you that are on here as parents, you know your core values as a parent. You look at your kid and you're like, I'm not doing that, period. We're not going to even discuss that because that's a core value for you, right? So as an administrator, you have to walk in your building every day and say, these are my core values. These are non-negotiables. My teachers know two things. Kids have to feel safe and kids have to feel loved. And if you don't love them, you better touch on them until you like them, because if a kid doesn't feel those two things in a classroom, they're not going to perform for you. They're not going to even attempt to try for you. So those are my core values. Those are my core values. And I've added on this year because we're so post-COVID now, I want families to feel like they're a part of our community again. We've had the shut door approach so long because we didn't want the germs in. Where we're post-COVID, we are having more events where we invite parents in because I want us to be a community of care. A community. Like I want people outside to say, oh my gosh, Mansell Upper they just welcome us in. We had such a great community night. That's my core values. Write it down. Start developing that now. If you are in a lead role and you're still uncertain about it, start a notebook and just start writing those things down, because you don't want to get in the role and then start spinning your wheels trying to figure out who you are. Because I promise you, this job, one of my fellow coworkers, and she and I were lit specialists together, and she became an AP around the time I became an AP, and now we're both in lead roles. And we met yesterday at the central office, and she was like, I told you this was the worst job ever. I was like, it has its goods and its bads, but I promise you, the people in your community will tell you what you care about. So you need to know that going in. And I'm gonna get off my soapbox. I do have some that I live on a little bit. Domain 6, resource management. And I know I shared with y'all on the first virtual class, this was my area of weakness. Resource management. I knew the resources we had. Did I know how much they cost? Not really. Did I know what budget line they came from? Not at all. It was the area where my first year, last year as lead, I had to spend time with my bookkeeper, tell me what all comes out of classroom money. Tell me where can we pull technology money. And so we were adding cameras to the exterior of our building. I got to know where I'm going to get money from, what budget line to add cameras. So it's like, these are things that as a lead, you have to know. You need to know where you're buying postage money from. I know that seems so trivial, but we were sending out postcards and she was like, well, we don't have any money and we don't have enough money in our postage to send out all these things. Well, put some money on the postage machine. And it's like, we got to make sure we have money in that budget line. So make sure you understand your resource management. It's an important role because instructional and operational leadership is how we get to school improvement, right? Because we're always trying to improve what we have. Now, this domain focuses on how school leaders manage all the fiscal and physical resources that are necessities. You got to have textbooks, or digital textbooks now, and they cost more. When you pay for an online platform, now it costs more than buying the physical books. So you need to know where your resources are. I like to always plan a year ahead, and that was difficult for my bookkeeper these last 2 years, because I like to buy this year for next year. So we had to move a lot of things around in order to get to a place where we were reserving funds to buy the things for the following year. And so she had to learn that about me, and I had to learn how she did things and how she had done things for years with our former principal. So, that's the sort of thing when you come into this role, you're coming into a system that's already in place, right? So that's going to be interesting when you're learning about all these things. And as you guys did your culture and climate videos last week, you saw that how important it is to know what the culture of your school is. And as an administrator, and a lot of times you get placed in a school, right? That school's culture is already set. You have to come in a nice way to change it a little bit, to fit your core values, but you also have to fit into it. So it's a little bit difficult. It's not difficult, but it has its intricacies when you're doing those things. So that's a quick recap of all the domains. Now I'm gonna really and truly go through domains 5 and 6 because that's where we are in our learning. And before we get off, I want to also spend a few minutes talking about that end game, the domains project, just so we have a functioning understanding of the expectation for that. So roles of the principals, domain 5 and 6. Core values has 3 elements to it. I'm gonna tell y'all, if you're not transparent, people can see through that. You know, some people like to just give you a little bit of the truth and then kind of gloss over the rest of it. It's not effective because people can see through the ruse. They just can. So being transparent. And I know there are some things I go to a principal's meeting and my superintendent will say it and he'll say, we're not going to release this information until later. And my teachers get wind of it. And so they'll come asking me questions about it. And I'll say, well, that sounds like something that may be on the horizon. But as of right now, we're not allowed to really talk about it. I'm transparent. And what she walked away from that is Dr. Cockrell knows about this, but she can't share it with me. That's that piece of being transparent. And I know that's hard in this role because some things you do have to keep to yourself. It's called embargoed. And that means your license is attached to it. Element 2, the school leader has the trust of the staff and school community that all decisions are guided by what is best for each student. I tell parents that in every meeting. Guys, I'm going to do what's best for students. I'm going to do what's best for students. Even if it makes my teachers uncomfortable, we're going to do what's best for students. Element 3, the school leader ensures that the school is perceived as safe and culturally responsive. And y'all, culturally responsive is now the going trend. And I'm going to call it a trend because when I sit with angry people now, that's what they tend to lean on. Now, as we talked about, you taking a notebook and writing down what your core values are. Are you a person that's very transparent? Or are you a person who keeps things very close to the vest? Like, I'm not going to tell anybody this until I can. Knowing that about yourself. Are you a trustworthy person? Do you think you can get people to trust you? Cultural responsiveness. How aware are you of the culture in your community? And do you believe, and I don't believe anyone that is in education doesn't believe safety is important. That's just one of those that's a given at this point. Now, your assignment last week had a lot to do with culture and climate. And hopefully, when you defined the difference between culture and climate, all of you got that. Hopefully. I'm going to read those this afternoon. Culture is the way things are done, the norms, the traditions, open and closed environment, collaborative. You know this if you sat down now and talked about the school you're presently in. Do you guys have traditions? Are there norms that are expected? How are things done? Ask yourself those questions. The climate is the way the school feels, and it is a result of the culture. Do people feel safe? Do people feel valued? Is the school inviting? My former superintendent used to always say that we should practice radical hospitality. And I am a true believer in that. You practice radical hospitality and your climate, people will feel invited into it. The school leader should be the top influencer of how people feel. Because if your teachers feel valued, then they make the kids feel valued and the parents feel valued. And then when they go out in the community, that's what they tell people. And so then your climate is perceived just the way you want it to be. And it does impact performance of your teachers and students. Because if your teachers don't feel valued, they go in the classrooms with that feeling. And that's what's poured into students. So as we dig deep into element 1, that piece of being transparent and communicating effectively, you have to be a person who wants to grow yourself professionally. Once you, and I tell people all the time, once I become a person who's not flexible and who's not a reflective practitioner, I'm gonna go ahead and apply for retirement. Because the minute you're not flexible and everything rubs you the wrong way, it's time for you to leave education, because this is the most flexible profession. If you cannot take things as they come, it's time to go home. Look at bullet point 2, because that's what we talked a lot about: supervisor evaluator functions as a potential mentor for the school leader. Sometimes you're going to be in a position where you don't see your advisor. So it's good to form a community of people that you can also lean on. Being a leader is a very, very isolated position, because you're the only principal in the room. Who are you going to talk to? Right? So you have to have people that you can, as a leader, lean on and be able to grow a network of professionals, join an organization, be a part of some things within your district. Evidence should demonstrate the school leader is recognized as transparent, and it should be reflected by your data. Integrity is always a big deal. If you don't have integrity, I don't know how you're going to stand in front of people. I don't. Does the leader have the ability to make tough decisions that never fail to put students first? Always putting the kids first, then you can sleep at night. And sometimes your decisions may not be popular among teachers, but it's the best for the students. We do at our school on Friday, we do Mansdale. I'm so sorry. We do Mansdale Mania. And that's a dance, it's like a dance thing for the kids at 7:30 in the morning till about 7:45 in the morning. And we have the big speakers out and the kids come out and we dance and we have a good time. And then we go back to class. The teachers hate it. When I say, I have some that have grown to love it, but teachers, their biggest thing is, but it's, how hard it is to get them to settle down. I said, the ones that don't settle down, tell them they're going to sit at their desk come next Friday. I bet they settle down. It's a consequence thing, but we're not going to get rid of it because the student body asks for it. And if that's the one thing that gets them pumped up to come to school, I'm not going to get rid of it. So just all of that goes into being a leader, saying no sometimes to things that people want. Element 3 goes back to that safe and culturally responsive school. You have to eliminate bullying. And how you do that is going to be different in every school building. I'm an elementary school, so I don't deal with a lot of cyberbullying. My 5th grade girl sometimes does the emotional bullying. Boys, as much as, I feel like they are better at the emotional part. Physical bullying is what boys get into when they hit 5th grade in my building. The pushing, the shoving, the bravado comes out, and, I have to tell the kids that's not kind. And you have to cultivate a desirable behavior. And that's tolerance. If you have a SPED population in your school, you don't want the gen ed kids to make fun of your SPED kids. And that's teaching them what tolerance looks like and what self-advocacy looks like. And now this academic safety piece is so important. I go back to, I think Vincent said about a productive struggle. Kids will have a productive struggle when they feel safe to take academic risks. Who wants to raise their hand in a classroom where they feel like the person put them down? So you have to make sure that kids have that academic safety. And as the leader who's going through doing these observations, that's what you're looking for. Is that classroom environment conducive for kids to take risks? Does that teacher feel like you allow her to take risk or him to take risk? So that's that academic safety piece. Now, in conclusion, for core values, the school leader communicates core values through every decision, action, and policy established at the school. And what the leader values creates the climate of the school. That's why I tell y'all that notebook where you write down your core values, and you may see them change. But you need to know who you are before you step into that role. All right, our very favorite domain, 6, resource management. It also has these 3 elements listed here where you are going to ensure that there is management of the fiscal, technological, and physical resources of the school supports effective instruction and achievement of each student. Some school districts tell you what resources you will use. Other school districts allow you to select those in your building. I don't know what district you're in. And I mean, I don't know which way your district actually does this. I have been in school districts that there is an elementary superintendent that told us exactly what our reading curriculum was, what our math curriculum was. I'm in a district now that allows me to make those decisions. And so we sat down and we looked at all the technology we were paying for the year before. Again, I like to pay for things ahead of time. If it's something that I would ask the company, send me a report of usage. And if I notice that we weren't using something, I'm not paying for that. That to me is a poor use of our funding. And so as a leader, that's your job. Physical resources. If your PE teacher doesn't have anything to teach PE, how is that a great class for your kids? If your music classroom doesn't have instruments, that's not effective. You're giving people nothing to do a job that's hard. And this is what I tell my specials teacher, that's PE, art, music, library. We have lots of things. Your class is supposed to be fun. Your class is supposed to be engaging. This is the 50 minutes that these kids have that they're not focusing on reading instruction, math instruction, social studies, and science. When they come in your class, in music, they should have boom whackers. They should have rhythm sticks. They should have tambourines. They should have the things. So when they get in this room, you see the kids that are gonna have a music career later. Because in elementary, you're defining who these kids are and what they like. That's part of your resources. So don't be the leader who's so focused in academics that you miss the other parts of kids. It's the whole child. Element 2, you are systematic. You have a systematic process that you're going to engage your district and external entities in to support school improvement. If you have, partners in education, you should know what your needs are. And you should be able to have conversations around, these are our needs. Can you help us? This will improve our school in this way. Element 3, compliance. You have to be in compliance. If you don't know the rules and regulations on a district, state, and federal level, you need to start reading that now. So when you're sitting in an interview later, you can speak to, as a leader, I'm gonna manage our resources in a way that I don't go against my district, my state, or my federal laws. Now, you are an operational manager. That is the day-to-day business of the school. I had to stop yesterday to go check a leak out that was in my greenhouse. I had to go check that out because it's in my building, it's on my campus, and it's my responsibility to know what's going on and get it fixed. So you have to pay careful attention to your budgets and your technology so that you're supporting teaching and learning and that you are being very efficient with the management of these things. Now, this is a breakdown of every element. You have to balance operational management with your instructional leadership. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is hard. My former principal and I, we have this saying that you're going to be 3 things within a given day. You're going to be a porta potty. You're going to take crap all day from somebody. You're going to be an instructional leader where you can get in classrooms, you can see what's going on, and you can drive instruction. Or you're going to be a firefighter. You're going to put out fires all day long because they're going to keep coming up. But those are the 3 hats that you wear as a leader. And I know you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's so funny, but that's the truth. And over the course of time that she and I were together, we formulated those 3 positions. And we tried our best to distribute that out where one person wasn't doing one particular thing. One of us was always able to be an instructional leader. When the water leak happened, if I couldn't handle it because they needed her, then I would be the one making sure that I was making those rounds in classrooms without any interruptions. And I'm that same way with my assistant principal. Some things she can handle on the operational end, but some things she cannot because they need a final say from the principal because I got to sign on the dotted line. So it's like, you need to be in classrooms. I got this. Or can you go down that hallway and make sure those water fountains are working so that I can get in this formal evaluation? But you work that out. But in some schools that are a little bit smaller, you are both of those people at all times because you don't have an assistant. But you may want to find a teacher leader in your building or a counselor leader in your building. Now, do your faculty and staff have adequate materials to teach effectively? That's what I got on to when I was talking about math, about the music program. But also your teachers, are we using resources effectively? Because sometimes we have too much stuff. But if we are not using the best things at the best time with fidelity, we're just throwing spaghetti at a wall and making sure something sticks. Student achievement can be linked to effective use of resources. Budgets are clearly outlined and prioritized to support instruction and achievement. When we get into element 2 of our resource management, has the leader assessed all the available resources? This is what I was talking about earlier. We look at our resources at the end of the year to tell us and to guide us for the following year. We look at our standards and our pacing guides, and I'll tell y'all, we take a hit the first benchmark in science every year. We already know we're going to have the worst scores in science when we take the MVP for the first benchmark. We know that because we knew what our kids needed when we unpacked the standards, and we shifted the way we taught them because they were weak in an area, and we have to teach that in order to get to the harder content later. So those are things, as the leader, you have to be a part of those conversations at the front end and not the back end. Now, do you seek external support? Are you a person who likes writing grants? You have community members, do you have support of the colleges and universities in your area, the local businesses? We have great support in our community, and that's what you want to have. You want to garner that as the leader. And going back to element 3, this is all about compliance, making sure that you know what your district, federal, and state laws require of you and your school. And you have to, here's the thing, there are people in this world that are rule followers, and there are people who are not. And they like to skirt the law, and they like to skirt around what people tell them they have to do. If that is you, and you have to know if that's you or not. Those people who live in the gray, it's not black and white, but it's gray. You have to know those things, but you also have to know what those consequences are when you live in the gray, because there are consequences for it. I am a black and white type of person. It either is or it is not. When I go to the gray, it's because it's what's best for kids. And I'll say, well, this didn't help my kids, and I live there. But I also have to understand when I go there, what is the consequence for that? That's my trusted notebook. When I write it out and I'm like, okay, if I do this, this is what's going to happen. If I do this, this is what's going to happen. But I can't do it the way they want me to do it because this is what's going to happen. And you have to have as a leader, you have to walk through that. And thinking about compliance, guys, you got to remember, we deal with federal law when we start talking about kids with disabilities, when we start talking about kids' MSIS data, checking accounts, and funding. We deal with federal law in those things. And I'm going to tell you one thing, your district can't save you if you break a federal law. So just know that there are multiple management responsibilities that fall to you. I know I went through that like a roller coaster kind of quick, but it's just a highlight reel. Y'all are reading these things and you are getting a great perspective from Carbo and Marzano. And I will tell you, this book, I go back to this book even in my everyday, what I'm doing as an administrator. When I get ready for a data talk, I peruse back through my highlighted sections in this book. And as I said, you have to always constantly be a learner of all things. I'm reading this right now because we're working at our bottom quartile kiddos. That's our goal for the year, reaching our bottom 25%. So I'm trying to figure out, how can I do that in a way that my teachers are supported? And so you as a leader will always constantly read and learn. It's my other favorite textbook. And I taught this course for Mississippi State during the summer session. And now I've always been a data nerd, but now I'm learning from this book. You think the higher you go up, the less you have to do, but I will be the first one to tell you, the higher you go up in education, the more you have to do, the more hours you have to spend, and the more learning you have to put in. So when you think about this course being your first course of the roles of the principal and going through all the different domains, it's so important because those 6 domains truly cover, as a leader, what your primary job is going to be. Embrace them all, love on them all, because you're going to do all of them within a given day. All right, let's see and make sure I didn't miss anything. Your SMART Goals assignment is coming up. Is that due tomorrow? Somebody not? Okay, making sure I remembered what I remember. So with that, are there any questions around the data project that is due tomorrow? And remember, you're only filling out the top part of that template. It really should have been the easiest of all the things, because all you're doing is meeting, who's giving out the data, what data are we looking at, what are our areas of weaknesses, putting it on a sheet of paper or typing it in on the template, putting a cover sheet on it, and uploading it. And everyone in your group should upload the exact same thing. If you're the first person to upload it, your Turnitin score may be 0. Well, it'll be a little higher than 0 because everybody turns in the same cover page. If you're the 4th or 5th person in your group to turn it in, you may have 100% Turnitin score. Don't worry about that. I know that. Don't worry about your Turnitin score, because anytime we're doing a group project and people are turning in the exact same thing, it's going to shoot that Turnitin score up. And I'm fully aware. Okay. Any questions about it? Please come off mute and ask.
We'll
Dr.
have the
Cockrell.
cover letter and the chart that you gave us filled in, and we'll also attach a separate document that includes a PDF of our data and how we broke down the percentages. Is that correct?
Yes, I do need a copy of your data, and you don't actually have to write down the percentages. You can literally highlight the areas that you guys identified. And normally when I look through the data, I can tell where you pulled it from, but I do like it if you highlight it. Again, it's 40 of y'all to 1.
And you're okay if we include our percentage chart with that? It's okay to give too much? Okay.
Yes, it is okay. And y'all can upload those things. I know a lot of you guys have been like adding it to the comments or something because it looks weird when it comes through on Canvas to me. But you can upload multiple documents when you do your one submission. Y'all are aware of that, right? Most of us are. Okay, so just keep uploading. It does not delete what you put in there. It should add on. And if you are one of the people that I've sent a message to resubmit something, just go back in. I know it's going to say late. It will still upload, and it's going to be the first thing I see. Just say okay, for example, if you uploaded something on Friday and you're looking back through it on Saturday and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot to fix this or I forgot to fix that. If you go back in and upload the document again, I'm going to see the latest, greatest assignment. That's just the way Canvas sends it to me. I'm going to get the last thing you sent. Okay? So don't email me because I can't give you credit for it in the email. I can only give you credit for it if I create it in Canvas. Okay? I knew that was something I needed to share with y'all. Any other questions about
on the chart?
Mm-hmm.
I know that we just fill out the top part, like that has the areas of weakness and those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
But do you want us to just leave all the other stuff that's below it, or do you want us to delete that?
Delete it. I want a clean sheet of paper.
Okay, thank you.
All of that. Okay. All right. I am going to go into Canvas really quick because I want to, wait, let me clean some of this up.
Dr. Cockrell.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain exactly what goes on the cover page as far as the names? I forgot if you said we send just ours or everybody in the group.
You list everybody in your group on there.
Okay.
Yes, but you use your same cover sheet that you generally would use for every other assignment, and your name will be first, and then you put everyone else's name in there with yours.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, since we're listing everyone's names, should each name be on a different line or?
No.
Okay.
No, because then you won't have enough space. You'll run off the top of it.
Right.
You'll run off, the bottom. You won't get your dates and things. Just list them across.
Okay.
Okay, we just see here. Okay. Give me just a second. I'm trying to make sure I've cleaned up my screen so it'll show exactly what we need to see. All right. So now that I am in Canvas and I just went in the modules, so we're at week 6 of this lovely course, almost to the end. You are going to turn in, wait, I went back, we're in week 5. Never mind that. We're halfway through still. You're going to turn in your group project, just the first portion of it. When we get into the second half of this is where you do have more work to provide for it. I'm trying to get down here to it. Here we go. So once you get to this part of your data project, when you start data project part 2, this is the other sheet you will add. I would love to tell y'all how to make this sheet be landscaped and the top sheet be portrait, but I'm gonna confuse you. But it's about your page break. How you do your page break will allow you to add this sheet onto that sheet. But I'm not gonna confuse you. Talk to your tech people. I know how to do it, but I'm not good at teaching people about technology. I know myself. Okay, so this is the next part of it. You have to list whatever your SMART goal was, what that area of weakness was for number 1. You're gonna list that, but then you're gonna do evidence-based strategies here. Who's responsible for that in your school? So just say I had reading comprehension R 3.1 here. Who's responsible for that? The teachers that teach the reading, and it may be the literacy specialist or interventionist. It may be academic tutors. Then the timeline for this. If I'm working on that standard, am I going to work on that for 2 months, 3 months, a year? What resources am I using? Did we have a curriculum that we bought, like an Exact Path or iReady or something of that nature? What's going to be the evidence of the progress? Are we progress monitoring bi-weekly? Are we using our MVP data, our iReady benchmark data? What is the evidence that we're going to look at to say that we have mastered this goal? That's the way this is going to be completed. Okay? Did I confuse anyone? Okay. Along with that assignment, my computer time to wake back up. Along with that, you're gonna complete that second page, which will be the template. This is a growing assignment. So it's not that we abandon the first part and we just turn in the second part. It's growing. You'll leave your first part on there. You will add the second part. You will fill in that template. Then you actually have to do a narrative portion. Okay. Along with that, you have to have a narrative portion, which you will identify, the areas identified as needing improvement. You're going to talk about what are the root causes. So if you are doing an algebra, if algebra is your actual area that is an area of weakness, what caused these kiddos to score so low on this standard? Is it a skill that they didn't learn in a previous grade, a previous subject? What's the root cause? Is it because you've noticed in block 1, these are the kids that are really weak, we have a high attendance problem in this particular class? Is it that this is a class where I have inclusion students and these students are missing a lot of skills? But you have to identify what is the root cause of kids not scoring well in this particular area. You're going to write a paragraph, not 3 pages, okay? We're going to write a paragraph describing how you identify the root causes. You're going to include a copy of your data. Please remove any identifying information, guys. That is a federal law. It's called FERPA. Cannot list identifying data, identifying information about students. I don't have an educational right to the kids that y'all are servicing. So please remove that.
Dr. Cockrell, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no.
I know that you have to remove information on students, but when we're uploading our data, like for this week, if the school's name is listed at the top, do we also need to remove the school name?
No, that's not, no. As long as I know who the kids are, that's fine. As long if you're the person sharing the data, you should have removed the kids' names prior to sharing it even with your group. And I'm gonna tell y'all, I'm a stickler about that, primarily because if you ever take time out and look at federal law, the things that are in like federal courts right now, that's what it's all about. Right now, parents are suing because my child's information's out there in the world. So be careful with that, even in just your general practices. You are gonna create at least 2 strategies per area. Okay, keep that in mind. You have 2 areas you've identified. So you should have area 1, 2 strategies, area 2, 2 strategies. Okay, so that template that I showed you is gonna grow. It's not gonna be, I'm gonna fill out these boxes and turn that in. Okay. And your rubric is there. I do use the rubric when I'm grading. That's why I always like to mention, please focus in on the rubric because it will be the determining factor for your score. Okay, let's see. It was one other thing I wanted to talk to y'all about. The group best practices project. Be aware of that coming up on October 13th. You are going to continue to work in the groups that you're already currently in. Those of you that are working on your master's, you are exempt from this assignment, but those of you who are in the specialist or the EDD program, you are not. You have to work with your group to come up with best practices. And you are doing 5 per level, and that means grade band. So 5 best practices for elementary, 5 best practices for middle, and 5 best practices for high school. And I would tell you to work with your mentor when you're doing this and write it up because it's going to be part of your practicum hours. You can list this assignment for that. So I like it because it does serve into 2 different roles there.
So would this be an embedded practice that we don't have to submit, or this would be a bonus one where we do write it up?
What do you mean?
She said some of the embedded hours we don't submit a second document for, they just automatically count.
I don't know.
Okay, I'll ask Sellers.
Yeah, that's going to be a question for Dr. Sellers as you guys move through your practicum hours. I just know that this is one of the ones that does play a part in both roles. So that's why I say make sure you keep some kind of artifact for it.
Gotcha.
And it may just be the document. I did in my summer trimester, those particular students wanted to see all the other group projects for best practices. So I did add those in. So I will put those on, in the, my brain took a break. I will add it to your Canvas module at the end of week 10. When I get all those in, I'll put them in so that everybody can see all the different best practices. And you may want to print them off because again, if you're not in a lead role, one day you may become a lead in a lead role and you'll have some best practices to go back and look through. And there is a rubric for your best practice assignment. So make sure we pay attention to that. Okay, let's go back to your mock teacher evaluation is due October 20th, but I wanted, going back too far. Should have written that down. When you turn in the SMART Goals assignment, that's where my brain was going. Get to October 20th. It's right here. When you turn this assignment in, I need you to be aware you are turning in 3 things, okay? You're going to upload the scripting form A, the evidence sorting form A, as well as a narrative 2 to 3 paragraph report that you've done. It's 3 parts to it. And I've been asked every trimester, does it matter if it's all in one upload or multiple? See, some of us are like really techie and we know how to upload all things in one document. Some of us are not there yet and we have to upload 3 separate things. Going back to what I said previously, that you can upload each of these things when you upload your assignment that one time. Just keep saying, I'm gonna upload again, I'm gonna upload again. And all of them pop into the Canvas on my end where I can see them in that one submission. So yes, you can upload them individually. If you're good at collapsing all things into one and uploading it, upload it as one document. What I am going to be looking for specifically, okay? I'm going to look for a scripting form, an evidence form, and then I'm going to look for a paragraph, your written out or your typed out narrative. The narrative, this is important, the narrative should have a cover page to it. Not the scripting, not the sorting if they're in separate documents. If you put them all in one document, the first thing I should see is your cover page. Okay? And I don't care what order it's in when you upload it as one document. When it comes to me as one document, I'm going to look for a cover page, scripting form, an evidence sorting form, and your narrative write-up. That's what I'm going to look for. If you upload it individually, that is what I'm going to look for.
You mentioned the order doesn't matter if we put it as a one document, right?
Right. As long as when that one document starts, I have a cover page to start it. Okay? Now, let's look at your paragraph that you're writing, okay? Because this is where a lot of people get confused when they write this up. Paragraph 1 is the narrative 3rd person write-up, okay? 3rd person write-up. It should briefly cover what occurred during the observation. And then I need to know what are the expected number of evaluations and what type is required in a given year in Mississippi. And guys, I told y'all that when I opened that document. Again, I'm not an I got you type of person. If it's an expectation, I'm gonna tell you. So when I showed you that crosswalk of how many, what type, and how it should look. I need that as part of paragraph 1. Now, when we get to paragraph 2, this is your reflection. If it is in first person, that is fine because it's your reflection. And if you answer this question that's here, you will be fine in your reflection. How did you feel during the evaluation? Was the instrument easy to follow? Were there any difficulties that you encountered? Or did you just find it hard or difficult to understand? If you respond to that in paragraph 2, you will get your points for it, okay? Now, the other question I get a lot is, what should the reference page look like? If you make reference to any of the content in your textbook, then that should be listed on your reference page. I am not looking for you to cite the MDE document. I am not. I'm not looking for you to cite the scripting form or the observation form. If you don't use Carbo and Marzano, then I'm not looking for that. But should you use Carbo and Marzano? Yes, you should. Everything you do for this classroom should refer back to the textbook. I like to use the textbook because I know you paid for it. And if I'm gonna pay for a book, I need to use the book. So I am gonna look for a reference page where you refer back to Carbo and Marzano. I just made their names one. Now, I said that you are going to choose a video to watch for your evaluation. Here's where those videos are listed. The links are here, and they are YouTube videos. There's a 3rd grade ELA, a 6th grade ELA, a 4th grade math, 10th grade math. So we tried to give you some options that were not all just one thing. And again, I apologize to our high school folks that they're not a more varied selection. But it's hard to find videos that actually show instruction. There's your professional growth link if you want to look through that. And I like to point out that the purpose of this assignment is just to allow you to experience what the expectations will be as an administrator when you have to evaluate a teacher using the required tools and rubrics. It is not for you to make a perfect, I'm going to go through and write everything down. That is not why we are doing this. This is so that you get just a hint of what these things are. That's why we do the data project. So you know, oh gosh, when I become an administrator, I do need to know what data is. How do I analyze data? How do I come up with goals and strategies to target weak areas? These are things in the role as an administrator. These are your jobs when you're in that position. So that's why this course likes to give you pieces of that just to see. Because actual reality, that's going to be your role. The rubric is there and it outlines, did you turn in a scripting form? Did you turn in a sorting form? And what that looks like. Did you complete the paragraph 1 of the narrative in this manner, answering these things? Did you complete the reflective paragraph, answering the questions there? And mechanics, did I follow APA style? And was it the appropriate length? And I'm sorry, because I know somebody probably got their feedback and was like, how is she going to tell me not to use so many pages? Because I have to grade 40 of these. And that's why I like for students to stick to the page requirement. Do I like reading them? Yes. I take notes when I'm reading your stuff because it helps me as an administrator to see your thoughts. Because believe it or not, if you're thinking it, I'm sure teachers in my building, they're thinking the same thing. So I do appreciate the hard work and attention y'all put into your assignments. Are you using correct grammar, sentence structure? I try not to be the grammar police, but if I do see something that's kind of confusing, I will highlight in your paper and say, hey, this is confusing. If you comment back to me in the comment section of your paper, I don't get notification of that. So don't think, oh, she ignored my comment. I just never saw it. Because I don't get a notification to go back and check it. And I move forward with grading and I never go back and look through the other things unless you tell me to. All righty. Are there any questions about the upcoming assignments that are coming?
Dr. Crawford, I have a question about the SMART goals.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just for clarification, with the SMART goals, you want the cover letter, the data. Do you want like with their names, how we black that out, and the deficits as well, or just the for iReady, just the sheet that had like grade 5 and their domains what they were low in, or should we include the deficit data as well?
When you say deficit data, explain to me what that is.
Okay, like for iReady, for the deficits, how they have like the green check, the check that is clear, and then the X, and it has the number, like the domain, like say it is RI or 5.3. And the deficit have like 19 students, or 19 students did not know it. 5 of them halfway did, and 3 of them didn't know it at all. Do you want that data?
So that's the deficit area, but
yes,
the data, then you have a summary report.
Mm-hmm.
I want the summary report
Okay.
that shows RL 5.3, 23% mastery. That's
Okay.
what I want. And that way you don't even have to black out the kids' names for me, because the
Okay.
summary report doesn't really give names. I'm
Okay.
not very proficient in iReady. That's the one program I've never used.
Okay.
So that's why I ask a lot of questions about iReady. Let's see here. We are at our time. Was one other thing that I want to make sure I go over before we get off. Our next virtual face-to-face is October 19th, and it will be at 8 o'clock. That's the one that generally doesn't last as long as these others, but it might. So just prepare for 8 to 10. That's why I always say it that way. Dropbox for your 6 domains PowerPoint. The confusion around the 6 domains PowerPoint from past trimester has always been how much to put on the slides. Less is more, because I've already read how you feel about each domain. This PowerPoint is literally gonna provide an overview of what you feel is the most important things from the questions that you've already responded to, right? So what would an administrator do to make sure they are leading and making decisions based upon your school's data to improve student achievement? You've already written up that summary. What I want you to do for your PowerPoint is to pull out those big things, those overarching things that you know are the most important in order for you to lead and make decisions.
So, excuse me, so if we use the papers that we have already submitted to complete this PowerPoint, that is what we can do.
Yes,
Okay.
that's why you do the domains assignments, because they are what's going to lead you to your PowerPoint. It's not like, oh, I got to revamp everything I've done originally. It is pulling from those things to make a presentation. And if you were in a face-to-face class, each one of you would present your PowerPoint, right? So what would you put on a PowerPoint to present to answer each of these 6 questions? That's the notion of this assignment. Okay, and if you use, and I'm going to tell you guys this now because it's going to come back later. If you use like Google Docs, you have to give me access to that, right? Canva, not so much, because if you share a link with me through Canva, I can get to it. But the only one that I've seen the most struggles with has been Google Docs, because it always asks that I get permission to view it. So if you do that, make sure you share that with me using whatever if it's viewing or editing. I don't need editing rights. I just need to be able to view it. So when you share it, make sure you give me viewing rights. Okay, I think I covered. That was the most important part for that. All the upcoming assignments seem to be pretty self-explanatory, unless you have any questions about it. I think they're pretty cut and dry at this point. We're getting the Activity Smart Goals Project 1. Those of you guys who are in the group with Charles, he's trying to get in contact with his group members.
They added me. They added
Okay,
me.
great.
Thank you.
Let's see. I'm trying to see if there were any questions in the group that I did not answer.
I had one question. The question you said about the three assignments that we can do at one time or we can do them separate, and you said that if we do them all together, you would want to see a cover page. On that cover page, or do you want all the assignment listed on that page, or you just want the
No, your cover sheet is just your cover page. That's what you turn in for all your assignments, the William Carey cover page. You'll have that, and then you'll have your scripting form, your evidence sorting form, and your narrative, in whichever order you put them in your reference page, whatever order, reference page last.
But what I'm saying, do you want the scripted form and all that on the cover page, or you just want the paragraph, the narrative paragraph?
I think what Taisha is trying to ask is, what is the name you want us to put for that assignment?
I think it has a name. It is your brain freeze, mock teacher evaluation.
No, do you want us to name all 3 assignments titled on the cover page, or just the one, or just the narrative?
It's the mock teacher evaluation. That's what it is.
Okay.
If you're giving it a title, it's the teacher evaluation. That's what it is. Listed like it is in Canvas.
Okay.
I think that was, we will have time. Not during this class. I did not put in time for breakouts. Okay. Page breaks, yeah, reach out to other people. I'm not gonna be your person. I know how to do things with technology that I'm not great at teaching it. Ms. Hobbs, you have your hand raised. Ms. Hobbs, you're on mute.
Yes, ma'am. I have a question. When it comes to the PowerPoint, do we have to type in those 6 questions on the PowerPoint slides, or do we just need to answer those?
Yes, I would say yes. You should have that typed somewhere on there. If you want to shorten the sentence and just kind of, say, I forgot data analysis or whatever, but yes, it's important that you are answering the questions in some form or format and listing out what it is. Like you may want to put domain 1 data analysis and just list it out, but it's closely to letting any general person who picks it up to look at it know exactly what you're doing. Does that make sense?
It does.
When
Thank
you
you for
pick
that
the
clarification.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Are there
So
any
it's okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes. Sorry. It's okay if we just list the questions and know the domain and we just try to answer the questions.
I would like to see domain 1 on there. So
well,
again,
I looked through that assignment like to see what I need to do, and it has the questions that need to be answered on the rubric, but it doesn't have question 1, domain 1. So that's what I'm saying. Like,
so this is your take when you complete this project, the domains project. If you were standing in front of a group of people presenting this, because that's why we do PowerPoints, to do a presentation, correct? What would you present? How would you present this to a group of your classmates if we were sitting in a room as an actual class and not virtual? What would you put on your PowerPoint? That's what you're doing. And however you think that would go is how you do that. I'm not going to give you like point blank stipulations for it because I want to see your creativity come through.
okay.
And you do need to reference Carbo and Marzano on your last slide. Please don't forget to do that because this is their work that we are reviewing. Any other burning questions? I'm going to make sure I have answered all the things.
Dr. Cockrell, can I ask you something?
Of course.
On the PowerPoints, can we just export it like a PDF, the slides, and submit it that way? Would that be okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
For those of you that are in, that have to get a mentor and all of those things, I always like to remind everybody, make sure you get those completed. If you have not already, get those signed and done. There's a whole Canvas module for that, but make sure you're getting those forms signed and turned in because you cannot get your practicum hours without it. Be mindful of our next class. I don't make the rules for class attendance. I don't. Again, I'm not a great person. I don't go to the ish area of life. If they tell me present is present, I'm going to mark you as present or I'm going to mark you as absent. That's how virtual works. It does play a part in your attendance grade. I'm the same with your assignments. When I check it on Monday, if you have not turned it in, I mark you as absent. If you do turn it in late, I change it from absent to late. It does not give you full participation points when it's late. That's the policy here at William Carey, and again, I'm going to follow it. My teachers know I have a rule of thumb when I talk to them about following rules. I tell them gainfully employed. If I'm going to get fired, it's going to be because of what I did, not because I'm sheltering somebody else for not doing the right thing. Reference page, we talked about that. I'm just going through my notes. I like to make notes about what I need to talk to y'all about. I think that is all Be mindful of when you're writing up your domains things, and I know we're toward the end of those, that we are using in-text citations. If it is not a direct quote, I don't need a page number. Direct quotes mean you picked it up, you put quotations around it, then I need the page number. If you are paraphrasing, you just put in parentheses, Carbo and Marzano 2018, you're done. Okay? Every paragraph, unless you pulled it out of your head and you did not take anything from the textbook, should have an in-text citation. And for those of you that are not going to stop here and you're going to write a dissertation later, you're going to need to know that, because they will mark it up when they send it back, especially at William Carey. I know, because I went through it. So just be mindful of that. Reference page, the title is italicized. The whole title. The title of this book is School Leadership for Results, a Focus Model. We capitalize school, everything else is in lowercase. Then we capitalize A because that's the second part of this, okay? That's the way we cite this textbook. My textbook is a second edition. I don't know about yours. Mine is a second edition. It was printed in 2018, and it was printed by Learning Sciences International. So that is my publisher. Those are the parts of a reference. When you do a reference page, those of you who are upset about losing 2 or 3 points for your reference page, that is why. Okay, I need the authors in alphabetical order. They should be listed. I need the year the book was published. Mine was 2018. I need the title. I need to know it was a second edition, and I also need to know who it was published by. That's a complete reference. Okay? I know people have asked questions. I get a lot of y'all email me about that. If your pages are not formatted correctly, I am not taking points for that. I know when I do a Word document and I upload it to Canvas, it shifts all over the place. If you are a person who knows how to do page breaks, when you put your cover page in there, do a page break for the second page, then nothing shifts. If you're a person who knows how to do page breaks, do a page break before you do your reference page. Nothing will shift. I don't know why, if you have indented a line when it comes through Canvas, why it pushes everything back. I don't know why it does that. But most of the times I can tell that it's a formatting issue because the second paragraph is indented. And I'm like, well, if they indented the first line, they wouldn't have missed they indented the second line. I'm sure they wouldn't have missed the first line. I don't even make mention to that anymore because I know some of that is formatting issues with Canvas. But if your reference page is like 3 lines down from the last part of your paragraph, I know that's not a formatting issue. That's you just skipped a few lines and wrote it and typed it. So that's when I will make comment about it. I try to give grace with formatting because I know things shift when it goes from Word to Canvas. PDF doesn't shift as much because for some reason on a PDF is locked in. What happens with PDF, it changes your font a lot of times. It'll make the font larger or smaller with PDF. Canvas does not care how you submit. If you submit PDF, if you submit Word, it does not care, nor do I. Okay, so how you submit those things doesn't matter to me. I'm trying to think of any others places. I think that's the only places that I've noticed points have been taken away. For the most part, your writings have been really good. It's good information. I will caution you to don't start talking about your school. Okay, I don't want to know all the things that are going on. I know I want to know, but in a sidebar conversation, not in your writing. Stick to best practices based off of what Carbo and Marzano has deemed as best practices as you're finishing up your domain assignments, okay? That is all the updates I have. If anyone else has any questions, y'all can stay on and ask those. If you are like happy as can be and you know how to go forward in this, you are free to go. Anyone has any lasting questions? Thank y'all for all of the great discussions. and have a great weekend.
All right, you have a great weekend too.
All right.
You too.